Hey, I have a second channel. Cube Compium DDX.
Hey everybody, so in this video we're going to be building, I guess what we can call a sleeper HP system. It is, at least the case that we're using was originally from an HP Pavilion A737N system. And you can see the original specs there. It had a single core Athlon 64 processor, 3200 plus. It was just a socket 754. So yeah, it's definitely pretty old. 1 gigabyte of DDR400 memory. It had a 200 gig IDE hard drive installed. Had a DB burner, which was also IDE. And it also had a separate C-ROM drive. So this one actually had 2 different drives in this original configuration. Had crappy onboard SIS graphics, which the previous owner of this machine had actually changed out the... Well, actually no, they didn't change out, but they added a graphics card into the system to give it better graphics. So, previous owner had 2 of these machines, exactly the same model, identical configuration. But anyways, since we had this bare case, I now have a socket AM3 motherboard out of a much newer HP system that's getting the Ryzen treatment. And I figured, why not put that motherboard in this system? So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and snap in the IO shield plate. These things can be aggravating at times. You have to be careful with them because sometimes you can cut yourself on them. That one actually went in quite easily. Kind of surprised. Okay, so next thing we'll do is drop in the motherboard, which currently has a Athlon 2 quad CPU. I will say this, I ain't going to be pulling that Athlon 2 quad off this board. I'm going to be probably changing it out for this dual core, because I do want to keep that Athlon 2 quad. It's either going on to the Cooper Plexi or another system. I haven't decided this yet. This is going to be kind of a basic end machine, but even in dual core form, it's going to be a whole lot better than what was originally in the system. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and install mounting screws for the motherboard, which I think are the coarse threaded screws. Make sure everything's lined up there. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and grab a power supply and put in this machine. For this one, we're going to go ahead and toss in a Bestech HX25012Z power supply. This one's been recently recapped. I see brand new Rubicon caps in it. In case you're wondering, the motherboard that this system came from had this exact power supply in it. Yes, powering an Athlon 2 quad. Actually, I'm going to have to use a different one of these units because this one here, this is the one that I had to replace the power socket on. And these blasted HPs, the thing about them is, for that era, that era of cases, they kind of did a weird thing with the power supply mount. You could, in fact, turn the power supply upside down with the PCB facing down, and it would fit. a lot of people had, that's an issue that people dealt with these cases, and a lot of people would they would bend the metal out of the way or stuff like that. But since I have a power supply, that will just drop right in. So let's go ahead and drop this one in. This one has also been recapped at some point in its past. I do see some replacement capacitors in there. See, this went right in. I will say that was kind of a ridiculous move by HP back in the day. Okay, power supply is melted in. Still got to plug everything up, but we'll do that shortly. We'll be adding in this Wi-Fi antenna lead. This also came from the previous system this motherboard was pulled from. This motherboard has a little, I like to call laptop PCIe slot on it, and it's got a laptop PCIe Wi-Fi adapter. It's a clever way to give this machine Wi-Fi, but not take up one of the desktop PCI Express expansion slots. Pretty clever. So, luckily this particular HP case also has the same little bust out mounts where you can install these accessory items. Might be like an HP kind of thing, I don't know for sure, but the way this works, or it's supposed to work, supposed to go in something like that right there. Get it lined up, and we're going to put the screws in. Okay, so we're going to plug in this Wi-Fi antenna lead to the Wi-Fi card, which is down here. Okay, I'll have to probably zip tie this out of the way somewhere. We're going to plug in our fan lead. What I'll probably do is I'll zip tie the fan lead and that Wi-Fi antenna lead together. Okay, so I got the leads zip tied back. Now let's go ahead and connect up our front panel connections. Now there's going to be at least a couple in this one that are not going to be getting plugged up because this motherboard does not have FireWire, so we're not going to be plugging that up. This audio header might be AC97. Let's plug up and to see if the front panel jacks work. If they don't, I'd have to adapt this to HD audio. Matter of fact, you could probably there's probably an adapter you can buy to easily convert it. Some premium motherboards, I believe, had the feature of allowing you to select the type of header that your motherboard has. However, I don't think this board would have that functionality. Okay, so I believe this one right here is our front panel buttons and LEDs. It's a pretty standardized plug, unless you're of course Asus, which Asus likes to do their own thing. Or at least they did. Not sure if they still do. Alright, and we got two USB 2 headers, one for some ports in the front and another for a card reader, which the card reader I do not think is HC compatible, so I may have to swap out the card reader for a modern one. Some of the older HP card readers would, however, support SDHC, but they weren't the fastest at reading SD cards. But for now, let's go ahead and plug it up, and we'll just have to see if it works. Okay, so these two connectors are the ones that will not be getting used. This one here, I believe, is for the front panel line in jack, which this motherboard I do not think has that connection available. So I'll have to zip tie that off. And I guess if I sell this system, I will have to make sure that the buyer is aware that the front line-in jack is not usable. They'd have to use the rear one. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and install our optical drive and a hard disk drive. So for this one, here's a little bit of a process of getting the front faceplate off. It's not too bad. Getting it off without breaking it is the fun part, of course. But so first we're going to need to install, we got to figure out, we got to see, alright, so I got to add some screws to this drive, and these HP cases use these round black screws. You would pre-install them to the drive and then you would slide it in. This case actually has a set of 4 already in it. However, I'm not going to use them. I'm going to leave those there because I have a bag of those screws from previous systems. Okay, so we got our screws mounted. And just like that, it's in there. So for the hard disk drive, let me grab a hard drive for this one. We'll use this Western Digital 320 gig Caviar Blue. Okay, so you're looking at this case and you're like, where's the hard drive go? Well, it actually gets mounted toward the face of the system. That being said, to make things a little easier, we'll of course need 2 of these. And a couple of SATA cables. I think it might make matters a little easier if we go ahead and pre-attach the SATA power connection. And yes, we're doing this exactly the same way that HP did when they built the system this motherboard came out of. They use not just one but two molex SATA adapters to adapt this power supply to power the DV drive as well as the hard drive. Okay, let's go ahead and install the hard drive, and the way this goes in, the screws actually get mounted into the bottom of the drive. Get the drive position into place, and we just install the screws. Okay, now I'll go ahead and run this down to a SATA connection on the motherboard. And also going to install SATA connection for the DVD drive. And while we're at it, go ahead and plug in our power connection. Okay, let's go ahead and plug in our power supply connections. I'm going to break this zip tie here because we're going to reorganize these cables a little bit. And plug in our motherboard connection. And plug in our CPU power connection. And also it's going to plug in our connections for the drives. Alright, so we're going to get some beefier zip ties to tidy up those cables. Also going to bundle in the SATA cables with the rest of these internal cables here. Okay, so we got got our power cables in our cables end. Definitely not the cleanest looking thing, but it's kind of what you get with these OEM machines, or at least the OEM cases. They can be kind of a bear to tidy up cables in. So that being said, let's go ahead and pop the front bezel back on. Okay, Now we're ready to go and give this thing a test run. Okay, so it's all plugged up. All I gotta do is start it up. And you can see it starts right up. Apparently this BIOS does not get along with my PS2, the USB keyboard adapter. So let's go ahead and grab my trusty floppy keyboard wherever it's at. The thing is, the keyboard that's on the desk will work fine once you get into Windows. It's just, apparently it seems like it's just with HP motherboards. Certain BIOSes or firmwares just don't seem to recognize the USB PS2 adapter. And it's actually, the adapter can also be hooked up to a mouse too. It actually can do both at the same time. So I'm just going to go and plug this in. Actually, I'm going to plug it on the front. Test the front ports. And they do seem to work. Yep, they work. So, well, this one's got the crappy Hewlett. No, we don't have the. I was going to say I was wondering if it had that crappy Hewlett Packard setup utility, but no, it's actually got. Looks to be an AMI BIOS. There you can see nothing, but this keyboard works. We're seeing our hard disk drive as well as our DVD drive. 4 gigs of RAM. What's nice about this board is it actually has 4 DIMM slots, so you could put up to 16 gigs of RAM on the thing just fine. And we can see that, of course, we can see. Oh, okay, so we don't have RAID. I was going to say we probably have RAID, but this one doesn't have RAID. Some OEM boards actually have RAID. Onboard audio, let's see here. This gives you option to either disable or enable it. The Aegis board is obviously HD audio, but I'm not sure if the motherboard that was in this machine originally is one that used AC97 audio or HD audio. For those who haven't been building computers back in the late 90s, early 2000s, AC97 or Audio Codec 1997 was the one that preceded the modern HD audio codec, and the pinout was actually technically a little different. The motherboards actually use the same arrangement of pins, but there's a little bit of difference between the HD audio and the AC97. So, that being said, we see our Athlon 2 Quad 630 processor. Of course, being an OEM motherboard, the BIOS is not too spectacular. So there's no OS on this, so we'll have to put something on here, which I'll be putting Windows 10 on this thing. Now, it probably would run Windows 11 just fine, but of course with the hard disk drive it would run a bit on the slow side. Hitting it. Exit. And again, don't have an OS, but it's working just fine. So I'm going to take the camera off the tripod, that way you can have a look at this thing. Hear my freaking creaky floor in this room. Gets on my nerves sometimes. So let's look inside it. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to be pulling that processor out of there. I'm going to be changing it out for probably a probably a Athlon 2 X2 240. I think I actually have a 240 CPU in my collection. Not too much more really to show you. I mean, we do have, of course, the back. So this one, we were able to retain the, well, I was able to bring over the Wi-Fi that was included on this motherboard. So we'll have Wi-Fi available as well. And what's nice about this is, theoretically, you could change out the Wi-Fi card for a newer one that supports modern Wi-Fi. So it's nice that they use an add-on card instead of soldering it right to the motherboard. Newer motherboards, I think, use like an M.2 slot for Wi-Fi. Mid-Tower Lux has one. The Mid-Tower Lux, believe it or not, does have Wi-Fi, but I never use it because I have gigabit LAN. But the Wi-Fi on the Mid-Tower Lux, there is a little add-on card for it. Run nice and quiet. So anyways, I think that about wraps up for this video. So that is putting together another, I guess we can call it a sleeper HP. It's a newer HP motherboard in platform and an older HP case. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that wraps up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to CubeComputer channel, and be sure to tick the bell, that way you get notified of new video posts. Also, I recommend following CubeComputer Company on Facebook. A link is in the video description. In addition to computer tech videos, I have a second channel, CubeCompMTDX. Links are available at the end of this video. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching and your support.